The pale blue light of morning crept through the reinforced windows of the Atlantic base, casting long shadows across the command center's polished floor. John Hawkins stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as technicians scurried across the massive underground facility, preparing for what could be humanity's final stand. 3 years, he muttered, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. 3 years of development, and we're still not sure if it'll work. The quantum railgun project had been his life's work since retiring from active military duty. What had begun as theoretical physics research had evolved into humanity's most powerful weapon, a defense system capable of accelerating projectiles to near-light speeds using quantum entanglement principles that even the project's top scientists didn't fully understand. Mia Williams approached from behind, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous room. "Final diagnostics are looking good," she said, handing him a tablet. "Power consumption is within acceptable parameters, and the quantum stabilizers are holding." Hawk nodded, studying the figures. Mia had been with the project since the beginning, brilliant, determined, and one of the few people he trusted implicitly. As the lead quantum engineer, she'd solved problems that had seemed insurmountable. "Any word from the Security Council?" he asked. Mia shook her head. "Still debating. Some nations are pushing for immediate deployment. Others want more testing." She lowered her voice. "They're afraid, John, and they should be." Before he could respond, Captain Lee Torres burst into the command center, her usually composed demeanor replaced by urgency. "Sir, you need to see this," she said, activating the main screen. The massive display flickered to life, showing a real-time feed from the long-range observation satellites positioned throughout the solar system. Dozens of objects had appeared near Neptune's orbit, sleek, angular vessels moving with purpose toward Earth. "How many?" Hawk asked, his voice steady despite the spike of adrenaline. "Initial count shows 73 capital ships, with smaller craft numbering in the hundreds," Torres replied. "They appeared through what appears to be some sort of spatial distortion. Our deep space monitoring stations never saw them coming." Hawk turned to Mia, whose face had gone pale. "Get Dr. Tanaka up here now, and inform the Security Council that the hypothetical scenario we've been preparing for just became very real." As the alert sirens began to wail throughout the facility, Hawk couldn't help but wonder if humanity's first encounter with extraterrestrial intelligence would also be its last. The Situation Room of the United Nations Security Council buzzed with frantic energy as representatives from the world's most powerful nations argued over blurry satellite footage projected onto the central display. "These could be anything," the Russian representative insisted. "Space debris, or perhaps a natural phenomenon we haven't encountered before. 73 identical objects, all moving in formation." The American ambassador scoffed. "We need to accept reality and prepare accordingly." The Secretary General raised her hands, calling for order. "We've received communication from the Atlantic base. The Quantum Railgun Project directors are requesting emergency authorization for live fire testing." A collective hush fell over the room. "That weapon has never been tested at full capacity," the Chinese representative noted. "The potential for catastrophic failure." "May be less catastrophic than what's heading toward us," interrupted the British ambassador. The Secretary General's secure phone buzzed. She answered it, listened for a moment, then addressed the room with a grave expression. "The objects have accelerated at their current velocity. They'll reach Earth's orbit in approximately 17 hours. Dr. Akira Tanaka studied the holographic projection of the approaching fleet, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the display. As the strategic defense advisor to the Atlantic base, he'd spent decades preparing for scenarios that most dismissed as science fiction. Their formation suggests military precision, he observed, manipulating the image to zoom in on one of the larger vessels. See how the smaller craft are positioned to protect the capital ships? This isn't exploration. This is an invasion force. Hawk stood beside him, arms crossed. Any response to our communications? Nothing, Torres replied from her station. We've transmitted on all frequencies, using every encoding method we could think of. Either they can't understand us, or they're choosing not to respond. The secure line from the UN blinked. Hawk pressed the receiver to his ear, listening intently as the Security Council delivered their decision. Understood, he said finally, hanging up. The Security Council has granted provisional authorization for a demonstration firing of the quantum railgun. Mia looked up from her workstation, eyes wide. A demonstration? They want us to fire a warning shot? Not exactly, Hawk replied. They want us to target and destroy one of the smaller vessels when they reach Mars orbit. Show them we have teeth. Tanaka frowned. That's an aggressive first move, if they've come in peace. Peace doesn't typically arrive in a battle formation, Torres interjected, and if they've come this far, they've likely studied us. They know what they're getting into. Hawk moved to the command console, entering his authorization code. Begin preparations for a targeted firing sequence. I want systems at 100% readiness within 12 hours. As the team dispersed to their stations, Mia lingered. John, we've never fired at this power level. The calculations are sound, but in practice. She trailed off. I know, he said quietly, but we're out of options and nearly out of time. The alien fleet crossed Mars orbit with methodical precision, maintaining their perfect formation. Earth's combined military forces had been placed on high alert, with space-based defense systems primed and ground forces mobilized. But against an adversary with technology advanced enough for interstellar travel, humanity's conventional weapons seemed woefully inadequate. In the depths of the Atlantic base, final preparations for the quantum railgun were underway. The massive barrel of the weapon extended up through the ocean floor to a heavily fortified platform disguised as an oil drilling rig. Its true nature, a magnetic acceleration system powered by the world's first stable quantum reactor, was known only to a select few. Targeting systems online, called out a technician. Acquiring lock on designated target. On the main screen, a single alien vessel was highlighted, one of the smaller craft on the formation's periphery. Quantum core at 97% stability, Mia reported from her station. Magnetic field generators aligned and operational. Hawk stood at the primary control station, hand steady as he entered the final authorization sequence. Around him, the air seemed to vibrate with tension. This is Hawk to all stations. Confirm ready status for first live fire. One by one, the subsystem managers reported in, until only Mia remained. She met his gaze across the room, her expression conflicted. This wasn't just a weapon test anymore. It was humanity's first act in what could become an interspecies war. Quantum systems ready, she finally said. May God forgive us if we're wrong about their intentions. Hawk nodded, then pressed his palm against the biometric scanner. Commencing firing sequence in 3, 2, 1. The entire facility shuddered as unimaginable energy surged through the quantum railgun systems. Deep beneath the Atlantic, the quantum core pulsed with blinding light as it channeled power into the magnetic acceleration chamber. A projectile, little more than a specialized tungsten slug weighing 20 kilograms, was instantly accelerated to 15% of light speed. On the tracking screens, they watched as the hypersonic projectile crossed the distance to Mars, orbit in minutes, its path unerring toward the targeted alien vessel. And then, nothing. Impact, Hawk demanded. Negative, Torres replied, confusion evident in her voice. The projectile disappeared approximately 1,000 kilometers from the target. Silence fell over the command center, broken only by the soft beeping of monitoring equipment. They intercepted it, Tanaka said quietly. Or they have some form of defensive field we didn't detect. Before anyone could respond, the communications officer called out, "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the alien fleet." The main screen flickered, and an image appeared. A humanoid figure with features that seemed almost reptilian, its skin a mottled gray-green, eyes large and entirely black. When it spoke, the words came through clearly in accented but understandable English. "People of Earth, you have revealed your hostility and your primitive weapons. The hegemony claims this system for colonization. Your resistance has been noted and will be met with appropriate force. Prepare for assimilation or extinction." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Torres was the first to speak. "How do they know our language?" "They've been watching us," Tanaka replied grimly. "Probably for years. Learning. Preparing." Hawk turned to Mia. "We need more power. Whatever defense they have, we need to punch through it." "The core is already operating at maximum safe capacity," she protested. "Pushing beyond that could destabilize the entire system. Then find a way to stabilize it at higher output," Hawk insisted. "Because in about 16 hours, Earth becomes a battlefield. And right now, our best weapon just failed its first test." The hegemony fleet accelerated after the failed interception. Their ETA to Earth orbit revised down to 12 hours. Around the world, panic began to spread as governments released limited information about the approaching threat. In major cities, citizens rushed to stockpile supplies or flee to rural areas, while military forces scrambled to deploy anti-aerospace weapons that everyone suspected would be useless against the alien technology. At the Atlantic base, Mia and her team worked frantically to recalibrate the quantum railgun. "The problem isn't power," she explained to Hawk and Tanaka during a brief strategy meeting. "It's focus. The quantum entanglement field dissipates over extreme distances, which weakens the projectile's stability. When it encountered whatever defensive system they're using, it simply unraveled." "Can you compensate?" Hawk asked. Mia ran a hand through her disheveled hair. "Maybe. We're modifying the entanglement matrix to create a self-reinforcing field. In theory, it should maintain cohesion even under external interference." "In theory?" Tanaka echoed skeptically. "It's the best we've got," she shot back. "Unless you've got a spare doomsday device hidden somewhere." Hawk's secure line buzzed. It was the UN Secretary General. "Commander Hawkins, the Security Council has reviewed your report. Given the explicit threat, they've authorized full defensive measures. The quantum railgun has been designated as our primary response option." "Understood, Madame Secretary. But I should inform you that our first attempt was unsuccessful. We're implementing modifications now." There was a pause on the line. "Commander, our intelligence suggests the hegemony vessels are deploying smaller craft. Analysis indicates they may be preparing for atmospheric entry." Hawk's grip tightened on the phone. "How many?" "Initial count shows approximately 300 dropships, each capable of carrying what we estimate to be 30 to 50 combatants." The implications were clear. The invasion wouldn't just be fought in orbit. It would reach Earth's surface. "We need more time," Hawk said. "The modifications to the railgun will take at least 8 more hours. We may not have 8 hours. Commander, do whatever you can. Earth is counting on you." After ending the call, Hawk summoned Torres and the base's security team. "Captain, I need you to prepare for a ground defense scenario. If they breach our location..." "With all due respect, sir." Torres interrupted. If they identify this facility as the source of the railgun, we won't stand a chance against their technology. Nevertheless, I need a contingency plan. Work with Dr. Tanaka to establish defensive positions and evacuation protocols. As Torres departed, Mia approached with a tablet displaying new simulations. We've found a potential solution, she said, her exhaustion evident but her eyes bright with determination. By creating a cascading entanglement field, we can essentially wrap the projectile in layers of quantum stability. Each layer that gets disrupted exposes another beneath it. Like an onion, Hawk mused. A very fast, very deadly onion. She agreed with a faint smile. But implementing this will require a complete reconfiguration of the firing sequence, and we'll only get one shot before the core needs to recharge. Hawk studied the data. How confident are you in this approach? Mia met his gaze steadily. 70%. Maybe less. It's bleeding-edge physics. John, we're writing the rule book as we go. He nodded slowly. Begin the reconfiguration. And Mia, when the time comes, I want you on the evacuation transport. If this fails, I'm not going anywhere, she said firmly. This is my project too. I see it through to the end, whatever that may be. Before he could argue, alarms blared throughout the facility. Torres' voice came over the intercom. All personnel, we have confirmation. The hegemony fleet has entered lunar orbit. First wave of landing craft estimated to reach atmosphere in 45 minutes. This is not a drill. The world watched in horror as the first wave of hegemony landing craft breached Earth's atmosphere. Their sleek forms leaving trails of superheated air as they descended toward major population centers. Global defense forces launched everything they had: fighter jets, surface-to-air missiles, even experimental energy weapons. The results were negligible. The alien craft possessed some form of shield technology that rendered conventional weapons almost useless. In Washington, D.C., the first landing craft touched down on the National Mall. In Beijing, 3 vessels descended into the heart of the city. Similar scenes played out in Moscow, London, Tokyo, and dozens of other strategic locations. From these craft emerged the foot soldiers of the hegemony, 7-foot-tall armored figures armed with weapons that fired pulses of blinding energy, cutting through buildings and vehicles alike. The invasion had begun, and humanity was woefully outmatched. At the Atlantic base, Hawk watched the global situation deteriorate on multiple screens. Reports flooded in from around the world, devastating losses, minimal alien casualties, critical infrastructure being systematically targeted. They're going after power grids and communications first, Tanaka observed. Classic military strategy. Cut off command and control, then isolate and eliminate resistance pockets. How much longer? Hawk asked, turning to Mia. Final calibrations are almost complete, she replied, not looking up from her workstation. Core charge is at 87%. We'll be ready to fire in approximately 40 minutes. Torres entered the command center, her uniform stained with sweat. Perimeter sensors are detecting approaching aircraft. Configuration matches hegemony landing craft. 3 vessels, on course for our location. Hawk's blood ran cold. They've identified us as a threat. Or they're just hitting all military installations, Torres suggested. Either way, we have maybe 20 minutes before they're on top of us. Initiate Protocol Omega, Hawk ordered. All non-essential personnel to evacuation transports immediately. Security teams to defensive positions. As alarms sounded throughout the base, Hawk turned to Mia. We need to fire now. The core isn't fully charged, she protested. And the calibrations. We don't have a choice. If they take this facility, we lose our only effective weapon. Maya hesitated, then nodded grimly. I'll need 5 minutes to finalize the targeting solution. We'll have to fire at reduced power. Target their command vessel, Tanaka suggested. Intelligence analysis suggests it's the largest ship in the Central Formation. As Mia raced to complete the preparations, Hawk activated the facility-wide communication system. Attention all personnel. This is Commander Hawkins. We are initiating an emergency firing sequence for the quantum railgun. All systems personnel remain at stations until relieved. All others proceed to evacuation points immediately. It has been my honor to serve with each of you. He released the button, then turned to Torres. Captain, get to the evacuation transport and ensure our people get out safely. Torres straightened. Sir, my place is here, defending this facility. Your place is wherever I need you most, Captain. And right now, that's making sure our people survive to fight another day. After a moment of tension, Torres nodded. Yes, sir. Good luck. As she departed, Tanaka approached. I should go as well. My strategic value is right here. Hawk finished. I need your analysis of the impact. Doctor, assuming we hit anything at all. The facility shuddered as distant explosions rumbled through the structure. The hegemony forces had arrived. Core charge to 84%, Mia called out. It'll have to be enough. Targeting solution locked on primary command vessel. Hawk moved to the main control station. All remaining personnel, secure for firing sequence. This is not a drill. He placed his palm on the scanner, entering the final authorization code. Firing in 3, 2, 1. Once again, the massive energy of the quantum core surged through the railgun systems. Despite the reduced power, the entire facility trembled as forces beyond human comprehension channeled into a single devastating purpose. The tungsten projectile, now wrapped in its layered quantum entanglement field, erupted from the railgun's barrel at a significant fraction of light speed, its passage creating a momentary vacuum that collapsed with a thunderous boom heard hundreds of miles away. On the tracking screens, they watched the projectile's path, a straight line from Earth to the heart of the hegemony fleet orbiting the moon. This time, there was no disappearance. The projectile maintained cohesion, its reinforced quantum field protecting it from whatever defensive measures the aliens attempted to deploy. The impact, when it came, was spectacular. The hegemony command vessel, a massive ship nearly a kilometer in length, seemed to crumple inward at the point of impact, then explode outward in a silent flash of light and debris. The shockwave rippled through space, damaging nearby vessels and sending the perfectly organized formation into disarray. A cheer erupted in the command center, quickly silenced as Hawk raised his hand. Damage assessment? Target destroyed. A technician confirmed. Significant collateral damage to surrounding vessels. The fleet formation is breaking up. And the landing craft heading for our position? Torres's voice came over the comm system. They've changed course, sir. They're retreating back to altitude. For the first time in hours, Hawk allowed himself a moment of hope. They'd struck a blow, a significant one, but the invasion was far from over. Begin core recharge sequence, he ordered. Prepare firing solutions for the remaining capital ships. John, Mia said quietly, looking up from her station. The core stabilizers are showing signs of degradation. If we fire again at this power level, we risk a catastrophic failure. Before he could respond, the communications officer called out. Sir, we're receiving reports from around the world. The hegemony ground forces are withdrawing to their landing craft. They're retreating. Tanaka moved to a secondary display, studying the global tactical map. Not retreating, he corrected. Regrouping. Look at their movement patterns. They're consolidating forces, abandoning isolated positions in favor of concentrated power. The main screen flickered. And once again, The reptilian face of a hegemony commander appeared. "Humans," the alien voice rasped. "Your resistance is unexpected but futile. You have destroyed one vessel. We have many more. Your primitive weapon requires time to recharge. We do not." The view shifted, showing a massive energy buildup within the remaining hegemony capital ships. "You have one planetary rotation to surrender unconditionally. After that, we will commence orbital bombardment of your population centers. Your choice is simple. Serve the hegemony or face extinction." The transmission ended, leaving a stunned silence in its wake. "Can they do that?" someone whispered. "Bombardment from orbit?" "Given their technology level, almost certainly," Tanaka replied grimly. "And our atmosphere offers no protection against that kind of attack." Hawk turned to Mia. "How long to repair the stabilizers and recharge the core?" She shook her head. "At least 18 hours for minimal functionality. To reach full power again, 24 to 30. "We don't have 30 hours, Hawk said. "We barely have 24. The facility shuddered again as another explosion rocked the structure. Despite the retreat of the landing craft, it seemed some hegemony forces remained committed to neutralizing the railgun. "Security breach in Sector 7, reported a voice over the intercom. "Unknown hostiles have penetrated the outer perimeter." Hawk made a decision. "Mia, stay here with the skeleton crew. Do whatever you can to get the railgun operational again. Dr. Tanaka, you're with me. We need to buy her some time." The battle for the Atlantic base raged through the night as hegemony forces attempted to penetrate the facility's defenses. Despite their advanced technology, the aliens found themselves in unfamiliar territory, fighting against humans who knew every corridor and had prepared defensive positions with care. Hawk led a team of security personnel through the lower levels, coordinating with Torres, who had refused evacuation orders and instead organized the remaining military personnel into strike teams. "They're targeting the power distribution nodes," Torres reported over the comm. "My team is holding them at Junction 22, but we're taking casualties." "Understood. We're moving to reinforce your position." As they navigated the dimly lit corridors, Tanaka kept pace alongside Hawk, his academic demeanor replaced by the focus of someone who had clearly seen combat before. "Their tactical approach is interesting," the doctor observed as they passed the bodies of 2 hegemony soldiers. "They're equipped for overwhelming force, not infiltration. This suggests they didn't expect significant resistance." "Let's make sure they keep underestimating us," Hawk replied, checking the charge on his rifle. The conventional weapons were surprisingly effective at close range, where the aliens' shield technology seemed less capable of stopping high-velocity projectiles. They reached Junction 22 to find Torres and her team engaged in a firefight with a group of hegemony soldiers. The corridor was filled with smoke and the sharp smell of ozone from the aliens' energy weapons. "Flank left," Hawk ordered, leading his team into position. They opened fire, catching the hegemony forces in a crossfire. For several intense minutes, the battle raged in the confined space. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The last alien fell, and an eerie silence descended. "Report," Hawk demanded, moving to Torres's position. 3 dead, 5 wounded, she replied grimly. "We can't sustain this kind of action for long." "Sir." Hawk's comm unit crackled. "Commander, this is Williams. We've completed emergency repairs on the stabilizers. Core recharge is proceeding faster than expected. Estimated time to firing capability is 12 hours. A murmur of hope passed through the assembled soldiers. "Good work, Mia," Hawk responded. "What's our power level?" "We'll have enough for 2 shots at most. After that, the core will need a complete overhaul." Tanaka pulled Hawk aside. "2 shots against a fleet of that size won't be enough. We need to maximize impact." "I'm open to suggestions," Doctor. Tanaka's expression was grim. We need to change our targeting strategy. Instead of hitting individual ships, we should target their formation's center of mass. If their vessels are networked, as our analysis suggests, a sufficiently powerful electromagnetic pulse might cascade through their systems. Hawk considered this. You're talking about modifying the projectile. Precisely. Rather than solid tungsten, we use a composite shell containing a high-yield EMP device. When it detonates in the center of their formation, it could disable multiple ships simultaneously, Hawk finished. But designing and constructing such a device in less than 12 hours is our only chance of surviving this, Tanaka insisted. Hawk nodded. I'll contact Mia. In the meantime, we need to secure the facility. Captain Torres, establish defensive perimeters at all major junctions. Dr. Tanaka and I are returning to the command center. As they made their way back through the battle-damaged corridors, Hawk couldn't help but reflect on the irony of their situation. The quantum railgun had been designed as humanity's ultimate defense against external threats. Now, it represented not just their best weapon, but perhaps their only hope for survival. The hours that followed were a blur of frantic activity. While security teams fought to hold back sporadic hegemony incursions, Mia and her engineers worked to modify the railgun's projectile design. The concept is sound, she explained during a brief strategy meeting in the command center. We've repurposed components from our own EMP hardening systems to create a device that should generate a massive electromagnetic pulse upon detonation. Should? Hawk questioned. This isn't exactly a proven technology. John, she replied, fatigue evident in her voice. We're building it from scratch and firing it from an already experimental weapon. Tanaka studied the schematics displayed on the main screen. The timing will be critical. Detonation must occur at precisely the right moment to maximize the effect across their formation. We've programmed a proximity trigger, Mia assured him. Once the projectile reaches the calculated optimal position, it will detonate automatically. A technician approached with a tablet. Commander, we're receiving updated intelligence from remaining satellite networks. The hegemony fleet is repositioning. They appear to be forming a concentrated attack formation directly above major population centers. The images on screen confirmed the report. The alien vessels had arranged themselves in a new pattern, their weapon systems visibly charging. They're not waiting for their deadline, Torres observed. They're preparing to attack now. Hawk checked the time. Core recharge status, 87%, Mia replied. We can fire at reduced power in approximately 40 minutes, but for maximum effectiveness, we need at least another hour. We may not have an hour, Tanaka warned, pointing to the energy readings from the hegemony ships. Those buildups suggest they're preparing for a coordinated strike. Hawk made a decision. We fire as soon as possible. Even at reduced power, the EMP effect should still be significant. He turned to address the command center personnel. This is our moment. Everything we've worked for, everything we've fought for, comes down to this. I need everyone at their stations, giving everything they've got. As the final preparations were made, Hawk found a moment of quiet to stand before the memorial wall, a simple display showing the names of those who had fallen defending the facility. Already, new names had been added from the night's fighting. Mia joined him, her presence a silent comfort. Do you think it will be enough? She asked softly. Hawk considered the question. It has to be. And if it isn't? He turned to face her. Then we go down fighting, knowing we gave humanity its best chance. She nodded, then surprised him by taking his hand briefly. It's been an honor. John. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Energy spike detected in hegemony fleet, called out a technician. They're firing. On the main screen, Beams of concentrated energy lanced down from the alien ships, striking targets across the globe. Cities, military installations, power plants, all erupted in explosions visible from orbit. "Core status?" Hawk demanded, rushing to the control station. 91%, Mia reported. "We can fire now, but at reduced effectiveness. Do it. Target the center of their formation as planned." Once more, the firing sequence was initiated. The modified projectile, now containing the improvised EMP device, was loaded into the acceleration chamber as the quantum core surged with power. "All personnel, brace for firing sequence," Hawk announced over the facility-wide system. "This is not a drill." As the final countdown began, he looked around at the faces of those who had stayed, the scientists, engineers, and soldiers who represented humanity's last, best hope. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The quantum railgun roared to life, channeling the awesome power of its core into launching the modified projectile. The facility shook violently, lights flickering as power was diverted to the massive weapon. On the tracking screens, they watched the projectile's trajectory, a perfect arc toward the heart of the hegemony formation. The aliens, focused on their bombardment, seemed not to notice the approaching threat until it was too late. The detonation, when it came, was subtle at first, a small flash of light in the center of the alien fleet. Then, like a ripple in a pond, a wave of energy expanded outward, engulfing ship after ship. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the hegemony vessels went dark, their weapons fire ceasing abruptly. "Assessment," Hawk demanded. "Multiple targets affected," reported a technician, voice rising with excitement. "Energy readings dropping across 87% of the fleet. They're shutting down." A cheer erupted in the command center, but Hawk raised his hand for silence. Remaining vessels. Approximately 9 capital ships and associated support craft appear unaffected, Tanaka reported, studying the data. They were positioned outside the effective radius of the EMP. "Can we fire again?" Hawk asked Mia. She shook her head. "Core is depleted below minimum firing threshold. Recharge will take at least 3 hours. Then we need to prepare for a counterattack," Hawk decided. "Those remaining ships will—" "Sir," interrupted the communications officer. "We're detecting massive energy fluctuations in the disabled hegemony vessels. Some kind of cascade effect is spreading through their fleet." On the main screen, they watched as ship after ship began to explode, the detonations creating a chain reaction that spread through the closely packed formation. The EMP had apparently triggered some sort of catastrophic failure in their power systems. "My God," someone whispered. "It's working better than we hoped." Even as they watched, the remaining functional hegemony ships began to retreat, accelerating away from Earth's orbit toward the outer solar system. "They're running," Torres said in disbelief. "We actually did it." The realization spread slowly through the command center. Against all odds, humanity had prevailed. The quantum railgun, combined with Tanaka's inspired strategy and Mia's engineering brilliance, had turned the tide of what had seemed like certain defeat. Hawk allowed himself a moment of relief, then turned to address his team. "This isn't over," he cautioned. "There are still hegemony ground forces on Earth, and those retreating ships could return with reinforcements. I need damage assessments, casualty reports, and a status update on our defense capabilities." As the command center returned to organized activity, Tanaka approached Hawk. "You should know," he said quietly, "that initial reports indicate the hegemony bombardment targeted primarily military installations and infrastructure. Civilian casualties, while significant, are far lower than they could have been." They weren't trying to exterminate us, Hawk realized, just subjugate us. A common tactic for a colonial power. Tanaka agreed. They wanted Earth intact, with its resources and potential labor force. Mia joined them, her face showing exhaustion but also determination. Core diagnostics show significant damage to the primary stabilizers. We can repair it, but it will take time. Time we may not have if they return in force, Hawk said grimly. Maybe, Mia conceded. But now we know their weaknesses, and next time, we'll be better prepared. The hours that followed were chaotic, but organized. As reports flooded in from around the world, the hegemony ground forces, cut off from their fleet and command structure, had largely abandoned their positions, retreating to isolated areas, or, in some cases, surrendering to human military forces. The price had been high, major cities damaged, infrastructure destroyed, thousands of lives lost. But humanity had survived, and more importantly, had proven itself capable of defending against a technologically superior enemy. 3 days after what was already being called the 3-hour war, despite the actual invasion lasting considerably longer, Hawk stood on the observation deck of the Atlantic base, watching as helicopters delivered supplies and reinforcements. The facility, once secret, was now the center of global attention and the symbol of Earth's unexpected victory. Mia and Tanaka joined him, both looking as tired as he felt. The Security Council has approved our proposal, Tanaka informed him. Development of a global defense network based on the quantum railgun technology will begin immediately. They're calling it Project Sentinel. And they want you to lead it, Maya added, smiling faintly. Apparently saving the world earns you a promotion, Hawk nodded, his expression thoughtful. And the salvaged hegemony technology? Being studied at secure facilities around the world, Tanaka replied. Preliminary analysis suggests we may be able to reverse engineer some of their systems, shields, propulsion, possibly even their FTL capabilities. This changes everything, Mia said quietly. In a few years, we could be the ones traveling between stars. And what kind of travelers will we be? Hawk wondered aloud. Explorers? Diplomats? Or will we follow the hegemony's example and become conquerors? The question hung in the air, unanswered but important. The quantum railgun had saved humanity from subjugation, but it had also ushered in a new era, one where Earth possessed weapons of unprecedented destructive capability. That's a decision for another day, Tanaka said finally. For now, we should focus on rebuilding and strengthening our defenses. The hegemony may return, or we may encounter other civilizations out there. And when we do, Mia added, we'll need to decide what kind of first impression we want to make. Hawk's communicator buzzed with an incoming message. The satellite network, partially restored, had detected energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. The retreating hegemony ships had disappeared through what appeared to be the same type of spatial distortion that had brought them to Earth. They're gone, he announced, at least for now. The three of them stood in silence, contemplating what that meant for humanity's future. The invasion had lasted less than a day, with the most intense combat compressed into just 3 hours after the quantum railgun's successful deployment. But its effects would reshape human civilization for generations to come. We should get back, Hawk said finally. There's still work to be done. As they turned to leave, he paused for one last look at the horizon, where the sun was setting in a blaze of orange and red. Earth had faced its first interstellar threat and survived, thanks to human ingenuity, courage, and perhaps a measure of luck. Whatever came next, whether peace or further conflict, humanity would face it with new knowledge and determination. The quantum railgun had bought them time and hope, but the real challenge lay ahead, deciding what kind of interstellar civilization Earth would become. The universe was vast and likely filled with other intelligences, some friendly, others hostile. Humanity had announced its presence with a weapon of tremendous power. Now they would have to live with the consequences of that introduction, for better or worse. As darkness fell over the Atlantic, Hawk made a silent promise to himself and to the planet he had helped defend, that the technology they had created would serve as a shield, not a sword. That humanity would reach for the stars with open hands, not clenched fists. It was a promise he knew would be difficult to keep, but one worth fighting for. Because in the end, the true measure of civilization wasn't its weapons, but what it chose to do with them.